Have you ever wondered if God is preparing you for what you've been praying for? This is a question that resonates with many of us, especially when we find ourselves in seasons of waiting and uncertainty. In this video, we will be exploring the 4 major signs that could indicate that God is preparing you for what you've been earnestly praying for. These signs are derived from the timeless wisdom of biblical teachings and the personal experiences of countless individuals who have walked the path of faith before us. We'll delve into the importance of serving God faithfully, the virtue of patient waiting, the development of biblical characteristics, and the deep-seated burden to seek blessings. These signs could be the divine nudges you've been seeking in your spiritual journey. So sit back and open your hearts as we journey together into this enlightening topic. Stay tuned as we dive into these 4 signs that could signal God's preparations for your prayers. The first sign that God is preparing you for what you've been praying for is if you are serving Him faithfully. What does it mean to serve God faithfully? It's about dedicating yourself to Him, committing to His will, and living out His teachings in every aspect of your life. It's about putting God first and allowing His will to shape your decisions, your actions, and your interactions with others. It's about being a vessel for His love and grace in the world. Take a moment to think about the biblical figures who served God faithfully. Consider Abraham, who left everything familiar behind to follow God's call, or Moses, who despite his initial fears and doubts led the Israelites out of Egypt, or Mary, who accepted the divine call to become the mother of Jesus, knowing the challenges she would face. These individuals served God faithfully, and in doing so, they were prepared for the significant roles they were called to play in His divine plan. Serving God faithfully is not about being perfect. It's about being committed, being open, and being willing to follow where He leads. It's about continually striving to align your heart with His, to live out His commands, and to embody His love in the world. When you serve God faithfully, you align yourself with His will. You open yourself up to His guidance, His wisdom, and His provision. And in doing so, you prepare yourself for the blessings He has in store for you. You prepare yourself for the answers to your prayers, for the fulfillment of your heart's deepest desires. But remember, serving God faithfully is not a means to an end. It's not about earning God's favor or manipulating Him into answering your prayers. It's about cultivating a relationship with Him, about growing in faith and understanding, about becoming more like Him in every way. So if you've been serving God faithfully, if you've been living out His commands and seeking to align your heart with His, it could be a sign that He is preparing you for what you've been praying for. It could be a sign that your prayers are being heard, that your desires are being considered, and that God is at work in your life. And even if you're not seeing the answers to your prayers just yet, don't lose heart. Continue to serve God faithfully. Continue to trust in His timing and continue to believe in His promises. For in His time, God makes all things beautiful. So if you've been serving God faithfully, it might be a sign that He is preparing you for what you've been praying for. The second sign is if you're patiently waiting. Yes, patience, that elusive virtue that we all strive for, but often find elusive. Patience is more than just a virtue, it's an essential part of our spiritual journey. It's about understanding that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our own timelines. Imagine you're a farmer. You've tilled the soil, planted the seeds, and now you wait. You can't rush the process, can't pull the sprouts out of the ground to make them grow faster. You have to trust in the natural flow of life, in the cycle of growth. And so it is with our spiritual lives. We plant seeds through our prayers and actions, and then we wait for God to do His work. The Bible is filled with examples of individuals who exemplified this virtue of patience. Think about Abraham and Sarah, who waited years for the promise of a child to be fulfilled, or Joseph, who remained faithful and patient even when he was unjustly thrown into prison. And then there's Job, whose name has become synonymous with patience in suffering. These biblical figures waited patiently for God's promises, and they were rewarded for their patience. But let's be clear, patience is not about sitting idle. It's not about doing nothing while waiting for things to happen. It's an active waiting. It's about preparing, growing, and maturing while you wait. It's about trusting in God's timing, even when things seem to be moving slower than you'd like. It's about maintaining your faith, even when you can't see the end of the tunnel. Patience also implies a deep understanding that God is at work, even when we can't see it. It's about knowing that He is shaping us, preparing us for the blessings that are to come. It's about holding on to hope, even when circumstances might push us towards despair. So if you find yourself in a season of waiting, take heart. Remember that waiting is not a passive state, but an active process of spiritual growth and preparation. It's about developing a heart that is fully dependent on God, a heart that trusts in His timing, His plans, and His love. So, are you patiently waiting? Are you trusting in God's timing even when it doesn't match your own? If so, take this as a sign that you're on the right path, that God is at work in your life, preparing you for the answers to your prayers. Patience, therefore, can be a clear sign that God is preparing you for what you've been praying for. So, hold on to your faith, maintain your patience, and trust in the perfect timing of the Almighty. Because when God's time comes, it will be worth every moment of waiting. The third sign that God is preparing you for what you've been praying for is if you're developing biblical characteristics. Now let's delve deeper into what this means. Developing biblical characteristics is about becoming more Christ-like in our daily lives. It's about embracing virtues that are highlighted in the Scriptures and making them a part of who we are. The first of these characteristics is love. Love is the foundation of our faith. As we love God, we learn to love others unconditionally, just as He loves us. This love should be evident in our actions, our words, and our thoughts. Next, we have joy. True joy is not dependent on our circumstances. It is a deep-seated gladness that comes from knowing God and understanding His love for us. Even when we face difficulties, we can have joy because we trust in God's promises. Peace is another essential characteristic. Peace is not simply the absence of conflict. It is a sense of calm and serenity that comes from trusting God and knowing that He is in control. Regardless of the storms that come our way, we can have peace because we know that God is with us. Patience, kindness, goodness, and faithfulness are also important characteristics to develop. Patience allows us to wait on God's timing. Kindness and goodness are reflected in how we treat others. Faithfulness is about remaining loyal to God, even when times are tough. Gentleness and self-control are the final two biblical characteristics we will discuss. Gentleness is about treating others with care and compassion. Self-control, on the other hand, helps us to resist temptation and live a life that is pleasing to God. Developing these biblical characteristics is more than just a personal transformation. It's a sign that we are aligning our hearts with God's will. It's an indication that we are becoming vessels that God can use to accomplish His purposes. Remember, these characteristics don't develop overnight. It's a process, and sometimes it can be a challenging one. But as we continue to grow and mature in our faith, we become more like Christ, and that's a beautiful thing. So, if you're developing biblical characteristics, it could be a sign that God is preparing you for what you've been praying for. The fourth and final sign is if you have a burden to seek blessings. The journey of spiritual transformation often begins with a deep yearning, a burden to seek blessings. This burden isn't simply about asking for material or worldly gains. Instead, it represents a profound desire for spiritual growth, for divine guidance and grace, and for the wisdom to discern and follow the divine will. When you find yourself burdened with this desire, it's like a seed planted within you, waiting to sprout under the right conditions. It's a calling to align yourself with the divine, to align your will with God's will, to align your actions with His commands. It's a burden that doesn't weigh you down. Instead, it lifts you up, guiding you towards a life of devotion, obedience, and humility. But how do we know if our burden to seek blessings is aligned with God's will? One way to discern this is by examining the fruits of our desires. Do our desires lead us to live more lovingly, more compassionately, more truthfully? Do they inspire us to serve others, to forgive, to show kindness and generosity? If so, then it's likely that our burden to seek blessings is in alignment with God's will. Another way to discern this alignment is by reflecting on our obedience to God's commands. Obedience in this context doesn't mean blind submission. Instead, it means willingly choosing to live in a way that reflects God's love and wisdom. It means making choices that promote peace, justice, and harmony. It means striving to be a channel of God's grace in the world. Having a burden to seek blessings also involves learning to trust in God's timing. Sometimes we may feel impatient when our prayers aren't answered immediately or when things don't go as planned. But remember, God's timing is perfect. He knows what we need and when we need it. Our role is to keep the faith, to keep seeking, to keep praying, and to keep opening our hearts to God's blessings. In essence, having a burden to seek blessings is about cultivating a heart that is receptive to God's grace. It's about learning to see with the eyes of faith, to listen with the ears of the Spirit, and to act with the hands of love. It's about nurturing a relationship with God that is grounded in trust, surrender, and gratitude. So, if you have a burden to seek blessings, it could be a sign that God is preparing you for what you've been praying for. Throughout this video, we've discussed 4 signs that God might be preparing you for what you've been praying for. Let's take a moment to reflect and summarize these signs so you can identify them in your own journey. Firstly, we explored the importance of serving God faithfully. This is about living a life that aligns with His teachings and commands, a life of love, compassion, and service to others. It's about being a living testament of His love in the world, reflecting His light in our actions and attitudes. Secondly, we discussed the sign of patiently waiting. This isn't about idle waiting, but a faithful anticipation, trusting God's perfect timing. It's about understanding that God's plans are always better than ours, and His timing, though it may not align with ours, is always perfect. Our third sign was developing biblical characteristics. This means growing in virtues like love, humility, patience, and forgiveness, among others. It's about becoming more Christ-like in our daily lives, aligning our hearts, minds, and spirits with the teachings found in the Scriptures. Lastly, we touched on having a burden to seek blessings. This isn't about wanting material gains, but a deep desire for spiritual growth and blessings that align with God's will. It's about longing for a closer relationship with God, for His guidance, His wisdom, and His peace. These signs are not a checklist, but rather guidelines to help us align our hearts with God's will. They serve as a compass, guiding us towards a deeper relationship with our Creator and preparing us for the blessings He has in store. However, remember that everyone's journey is unique. These signs may manifest differently in your life compared to others. The key is to stay connected with God through prayer and Scripture and to remain open to His guidance. Please leave a comment below if you found this video useful and share with us what you've been praying to God for that you are confident He will do for you very soon. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching.